Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the U.S. Liberty. The ship was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engines. They had been traveling through space for 3 months now, looking for new worlds and life beyond Earth. Jake loved these peaceful moments when the stars seemed endless outside the windows. Lieutenant Lisa Martinez sat at her station, watching the communication screens. She was the ship's science officer and spoke 7 languages. Today she was hoping to find signals from other intelligent life in the galaxy. For weeks they had heard nothing but static and empty space. "Captain," Lisa called out suddenly. Her voice was excited but worried. "I'm getting something strange here. It's not from Earth or any of our other ships." Jake hurried over to her station. On the screen, waves of light danced up and down in patterns. The signal was weak, but clearly made by someone smart, not just random noise from space. "Where is it coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa typed quickly on her keyboard. Numbers and star maps appeared on the screen. "The Kepler 442 system, sir. That's over 1,000 light-years away from here. Whoever sent this has been transmitting for a very long time." Jake felt his heart beat faster. First contact with aliens had always been humanity's dream. But something about Lisa's worried expression made him nervous. "Can you understand what they're saying?" "Give me a few minutes, sir. The signal uses mathematics, which should be universal. If they're trying to communicate, I can figure it out." Jake watched Lisa work. She was brilliant with languages and codes. Her fingers moved fast across the controls as she ran the signal through different translation programs. Other crew members gathered around, sensing that something important was happening. Commander Susan Hayes came onto the bridge. She was the ship's second-in-command and strategic advisor. Susan had fought in Earth's last war and knew how to read dangerous situations. "What do we have, Captain?" Susan asked. "Possible alien contact. Lisa is working on translating it now." Susan's face became serious. She had always believed that when humans finally met aliens, it might not be a friendly meeting. The universe was a big and dangerous place. "Got it," Lisa shouted. The bridge became silent as everyone turned to listen. "It's a distress call, a very desperate one." The main screen lit up with Lisa's translation. Mathematical symbols turned into words that everyone could understand. Jake read them out loud. "We are the threnody of the crystal world. Our home burns. Our people die. The Vorthic Empire destroys everything we built. We have fought for 7 years, but we are too weak. If anyone receives this message, please help us. We are the last of our kind." The bridge was completely quiet. Jake looked around at his crew. They had found alien life, but it was crying for help across the vast darkness of space. The message continued with star maps showing the location of their world and pictures of crystal cities burning under attack. "There's more, Captain," Lisa said softly. "They've been sending this message for 2 years. It's automated now. The signal is getting weaker." Jake stared at the images on the screen. The threnody looked like living crystals that could think and feel. Their cities were beautiful, made of colored glass that reached toward the sky. But in the recent pictures, everything was broken and burning. "Who are the Vorthic?" Susan asked. Lisa pulled up more data from the alien message. "According to this, they're a military empire that has been taking over worlds for thousands of years. They enslave or kill every species they find. The Threnodies say the Vorthic have already destroyed dozens of civilizations." Jake felt anger growing in his chest. He had joined the space program to explore and discover, not to find innocent people being murdered by bullies. But what could they do? Earth was far away, and they were just one ship. "Captain," said Tony Rivera, the ship's engineer. He had been listening from the back of the bridge. "We have to do something. We can't just ignore this." Tony's right, added Amy Clark, who commanded the ship's fighters. My grandfather always said that good people don't walk away when someone needs help. Jake looked at the message again. The Threnody were begging anyone in the galaxy to save them. They had no way of knowing if anyone was even listening. For 2 years, they had been calling into the dark, hoping someone would care enough to answer. Lisa, how long would it take us to reach their system? At maximum speed with our current fuel, about 4 months, sir. But Captain, we don't know what we would find when we get there. This message is 2 years old. They might already be dead. Jake thought about his duty to his crew and to Earth. They were explorers, not soldiers. But they were also human beings, and humans had never been good at ignoring people in trouble. Send a message back to Earth, Jake decided. Tell Admiral Collins what we found. Let him know we're going to investigate. Sir, Susan said carefully, investigating is one thing. But if we're thinking about fighting an alien empire, we need more than one ship. Jake nodded. Susan was right, as always. But he also knew that by the time Earth could send help, it would be too late for the Threnody. Send the message to Earth, he repeated, but plot a course for the Kepler 442 system. We're going to answer their call. The crew began moving quickly to carry out his orders. Jake stood alone for a moment, looking at the alien distress call still playing on the screen. Humanity was about to meet the galaxy, and it would not be the peaceful first contact they had always imagined. In 4 months, they would learn what it meant to be the newest Deathworld species in a galaxy full of predators and prey. The Vorthik Empire was about to discover that some prey fought back with fire and steel. Admiral Frank Collins stood in the war room deep inside Earth's military headquarters. The message from Captain Morrison had arrived 3 days ago, and Frank had not slept since. On the big screen in front of him, the alien distress call played over and over. The crystal beings called Threnody were dying, and somehow humanity had become their only hope. How many ships can we send? Frank asked the group of officers around the table. General Patricia Brooks looked at her reports. We have 12 ships, ready for long-distance travel. The Liberty is already on its way. That leaves us with 11 ships here, including the Ranger, the Falcon, and the Storm. That's our entire deep space fleet, said Dr. Kevin Park, the military's head scientist. If we send them all, Earth will have no protection. Frank understood the risk. Earth had only been traveling between stars for 5 years. They had built their ships for exploring and trading, not for fighting wars. But the alien message had shown them something terrible. The galaxy was full of killers, and innocent people were dying. We can't let this happen, Frank decided. If we ignore this cry for help, what does that say about humanity? Besides, if this Vorthik Empire is as dangerous as the message says, they'll find Earth eventually. Better to fight them far away than wait for them to come here. The room buzzed with activity as officers began planning. Tony Rivera, who had been brought back from the Liberty's sister ship, started working on modifications. Human ships were tough, but they needed to be ready for war. Our ships were built for peace, Tony explained to the engineering teams. We need to change them fast. Add more armor, bigger weapons, and better shields. The shipyards around Earth became busier than they had ever been. Workers labored day and night, welding new metal plates onto ship hulls and installing weapons that had only existed in computer simulations. The humans were preparing for their first war. Among the stars, Captain Amy Clark walked through the hangar of her ship, the UES Ranger. Her crew was loading missiles and checking fighter planes. Amy had been a pilot in Earth's Air Force before joining the space program. She knew how to fight, but fighting in space against aliens was something completely new. Captain, called Lieutenant Roy Bennett, her tactical officer, I've been studying the alien data. The Vorthik use energy weapons and shields. Most galactic species fight at long range with plasma beams. What about us? Amy asked. Roy smiled grimly. We use bullets, missiles, and explosives. Lots of explosives. The aliens might not expect that. Dr. Kevin Park was working in his laboratory, trying to understand Vorthik technology from the few images in the Threnody message. What he found worried him. Their ships are huge, Kevin told his research team. Much bigger than ours. They've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We're like children trying to fight adults. But Dr. Lisa Martinez, who had been brought to Earth to help with the translation work, disagreed. Maybe being new to galactic war is an advantage. We think differently. We fight differently. Lisa had been studying all the alien messages they could find. Most galactic species seemed to fight wars like games, with rules and honor. Humans fought wars to win, no matter what it took. Look at our history, Lisa continued. Humans have always fought against bigger, stronger enemies. We survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have killed us all. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Frank was reading reports about Earth's classification in alien databases. What he learned changed everything. According to alien records, Earth is rated as a Class 12 death world, Frank announced to his staff. That's the highest danger rating they have. Most alien species can only survive on Class 3 worlds or lower. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed this information. What does that mean for us? Asked General Brooks. It means we're tougher than anything else in the galaxy, Frank replied. We evolved on a world that kills most life forms just by existing. We're predators from a planet of predators. The implications were staggering. Humans could survive in environments that would kill most aliens instantly. They could fight longer, harder, and with less fear than species from safer worlds. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system from deep space. Admiral, we're 3 weeks out from the Threnody system. Any word on reinforcements? 11 ships are on their way, Jake. They'll be behind you by about a month. Understood, sir. We'll try to keep the Threnody alive until you get here. Frank wished he could promise more help, but 12 ships were all humanity had. They were about to fight an empire that controlled hundreds of worlds with just 12 exploration vessels. Modified for war. Dr. Park had been working on new weapons based on human thinking. Most aliens use energy shields that stop plasma and LACR weapons. But our kinetic weapons might punch right through. A big enough bullet can break any shield. The human approach to war was becoming clear. Where aliens used elegant energy weapons, humans would use crude but effective projectiles. Where aliens fought with honor and rules, humans would fight to survive. Where aliens expected civilized warfare, humans would bring the violence of a death world. Admiral Collins walked onto the observation deck and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, crystal beings were dying while calling for help. In a few weeks, humanity would answer that call with everything they had. The ships were almost ready. The weapons were loaded. The crews were trained. Earth's children were about to teach the galaxy what happened when you threatened innocent life in front of a death world species. The Vorthik Empire had ruled through fear for thousands of years. They were about to learn that some species were too dangerous to be afraid. Frank turned away from the stars and headed back to the war room. There was still work to do. In 30 days, the human fleet would jump into hyperspace, carrying a simple message for the galaxy. Earth's children don't abandon their friends, no matter how far they have to travel or how hard they have to fight. The age of human warfare among the stars was about to begin. The U's Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, staring at the scene before them. His heart sank as he saw what remained of the Threnody homeworld dot the planet that should have been beautiful crystal cities was now covered in smoke and fire. Massive alien ships surrounded the world like vultures circling their prey. The Vorthic fleet was enormous, with ships 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. 36 enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Roy Bennett from his tactical station. Captain, they're huge. Our entire ship could fit inside one of their main guns. Jake counted only 1 human ship against 36 alien warships. The odds were impossible, but the Threnody were still alive down on that burning planet. He could see their distress signals getting weaker by the hour. Lisa, can you contact the planet's surface? Dr. Lisa Martinez worked frantically at her communication station. I'm getting through, Captain. There are still survivors in the underground crystal caves. Maybe 50,000 Threnody left out of millions. The main screen showed the leader of the surviving Threnody. Elder Zephyros looked like a walking diamond, but his crystal body was cracked and dim. Behind him, Jake could see other crystal beings tending to their wounded. You came, Zephyros said in broken English that Lisa had helped him learn. We thought no one heard our call. We heard you, Jake replied. We're here to help. Zephyros looked confused. You are only one small ship. The Vorthic have many large ships. How can you help us? Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were scared but determined. These people had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to help strangers. They were ready to fight impossible odds because it was the right thing to do. Elder Zephyros, my species doesn't abandon friends. We're going to get you out of there. On? The largest Vorthic ship, War Prince Karnith, was studying the strange new vessel. He had been destroying worlds for 200 years and had never seen a ship designed like this. The human ship was small and looked primitive, but something about it made him nervous. What species is this? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, War Prince. The ship appears to be from a system called Sol. The planet is listed as Earth, Class 12 Deathworld. Karnith paused. He had heard stories about Deathworld species, but had never encountered one. Most intelligent life came from safe, peaceful worlds. Only the most dangerous creatures could evolve on worlds rated above Class 5. Should we warn them off, War Prince? No, Karnith decided. One ship cannot threaten our fleet. We will destroy them quickly and continue with the planet's sterilization. The Vorthic fleet began moving toward the Liberty. Their ships were beautiful, in a deadly way, covered in sharp angles and glowing with purple energy. Each ship was armed with plasma cannons that could melt through solid rock. They're coming straight at us, Roy reported. Captain, they're not even trying to surround us. They think we're no threat at all. Jake smiled grimly. Then let's show them what a Deathworld species can do. Amy, are your fighters ready? Captain. Amy Clark's voice came from the fighter bay. 6 fighters loaded and ready, sir. We've got nuclear missiles and kinetic penetrators. Lisa, send a message to the Threnody. Tell them to get as deep underground as possible. Things are about to get loud up here. The first Vorthic ship fired its plasma cannons. Bright purple beams cut through space toward the Liberty, but Jake had expected this. Human ships were built to survive, not to look pretty. Evasive maneuvers. Jake ordered. The Liberty twisted and turned through space like a fighter plane instead of a capital ship. The Vorthic beams missed, and the alien gunners struggled to target something so fast and unpredictable. Return fire. All weapons. The Liberties. Response was nothing like the elegant energy weapons of galactic warfare. Railguns launched solid metal projectiles at incredible speed. Nuclear missiles streaked through space trailing fire. Explosive charges designed for asteroid mining found new targets. The first Vorthic ship to be hit was completely unprepared. Its energy shields were designed to stop plasma and lasers, not solid chunks of metal, moving at relativistic speeds. The railgun projectiles punched through the shields like they weren't there and tore massive holes in the alien hull. Impossible! War Prince Cardiff shouted as he watched one of his cruisers break apart. Their weapons passed right through our shields. Amy Clark's fighters launched from the Liberty's Bay. The small human craft swarmed around the massive Vorthic ships like angry hornets. Where the aliens expected honor and formation fighting, the humans brought chaos and unpredictability. Fighter 2, ram that gun turret, Amy ordered. Copy that, Captain. The Vorthic watched in horror as a human pilot deliberately crashed his fighter into their weapon systems. The explosion took out an entire gun deck. No galactic species fought like this. No one sacrificed themselves so easily. These creatures are insane, the Vorthic tactical officer reported. They're using kamikaze attacks. More human weapons found their targets. Nuclear warheads designed for planet-cracking mining operations turned Vorthic ships into clouds of radioactive debris. The aliens had never faced weapons that simply overwhelmed their defenses through. Raw destructive power. Jake watched the battle from his command chair. They were winning, but it wouldn't last. More Vorthic ships were closing in, and the Liberty was taking damage. Roy, target that big one with the fancy decorations. That has to be their command ship. Aye, Captain, loading our biggest missile. The missile that launched toward War Prince Carnith's flagship was originally designed to break up asteroids for mining. It carried a fusion warhead with enough power to level the mountain. The Vorthic point defense systems tried to stop it, but human engineers had built the missile to survive almost anything. The explosion lit up the system like a new star. When the light faded, the Vorthic flagship was gone. War Prince Carnith and his entire command staff had been vaporized in an instant. The remaining Vorthic ships began to retreat. They had lost half their fleet to one small ship from a species they had never heard of. The survivors spread the word across their empire. A new Deathworld species had joined the galaxy, and they fought like demons. Elder Zephyros, Jake called down to the planet. Are you still there? We are here, Captain Morrison. We saw the lights in the sky. Did you win? We bought you some time. But more will come. We need to get your people to safety. As the Liberty began rescue operations, Jake thought about what they had just done. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as explorers or diplomats, but as warriors. They had proven that Deathworld species fought differently than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Vorthic Empire would return with more ships and deadlier weapons. But they would find that humanity was ready for them. Earth's children had tasted their first victory among the stars, and they were hungry for more. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened innocence in front of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the most dangerous world in known space. News of the human victory traveled faster than light across the galaxy. In the great crystal halls of the Galactic Council, representatives from dozens of species gathered in emergency session. Ambassador Viridian of the Altarian Republic stood before the assembly, his blue skin pale with worry. Fellow council members, Viridian began, we have a situation that threatens the balance of galactic power. An unknown species calling themselves humans has defeated a Vorthic battle fleet. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Keth representative, a tall insect-like being, clicked his mandibles in disbelief. Impossible. The Vorthic have ruled for 3,000 years. No one defeats them in open battle. The evidence is undeniable, Viridian continued. 36 Vorthic ships were destroyed or damaged by a single human vessel. The survivors report weapons and tactics unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Meanwhile, in the Kepler 442 system, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of a crystal city with Elder Zephyros. The Threnody leader's body was slowly healing, his crystal form growing brighter as hope returned to his people. "Your species saved us," Zephyros said. "But why? You had never met us before." "We had nothing to offer you in return." Jake picked up a piece of broken crystal that had once been part of a beautiful building, because it was the right thing to do. "Where we come from, you don't abandon people who need help." The human fleet had arrived from Earth the day before. Admiral Frank Collins now commanded 12 ships in orbit around the Threnody homeworld. Chief Engineer Tony Rivera was working with Threnody crystal shapers to build new defenses, combining human weapons with alien technology. "The crystals can focus our energy weapons," Tony explained to Dr. Kevin Park. "If we mount them on our ships, we could triple our firepower." But Dr. Lisa Martinez had discovered something troubling in the Threnody archives. She called Jake and Frank to an underground chamber filled with holographic star maps. "The Vorthic Empire is massive," Lisa explained, pointing to red zones that covered a quarter of the galaxy. "They control over 400 worlds and have thousands of ships. We hurt them, but we also made them very angry." The map showed green dots scattered across space, worlds that had successfully resisted Vorthic invasion. Most were heavily fortified. Military powers or species too dangerous to conquer easily. "There are others fighting them," Frank observed. "If we could unite these resistance movements—" "That's the problem," Lisa interrupted. "Most of these species barely trust each other, let alone newcomers. The galaxy has been at war so long that cooperation is almost impossible." On the Vorthic throne world of Korthic Prime, High War Marshal Vexus received the reports from the survivors of Karnath's fleet. The massive reptilian leader studied the data with growing fury. "Humans," he hissed, "from a Class 12 death world. How did we not know about them?" His intelligence chief, a smaller Vorthic named Vex, trembled. As he spoke, "The Sol system was marked for future expansion, War Marshal. We believed it would be centuries before the local species developed space travel. And now they have destroyed an entire battle fleet." Exos slammed his clawed fist on the table. "Mobilize the 5th and 7th fleets. 300 ships. I want that death world found and burned to ash." Back in the Kepler 442 system, Lieutenant Commander Roy Bennett was analyzing Vorthic communication intercepts when he discovered the massive fleet being assembled. "Admiral," Roy reported to Frank, "we're in trouble. They're sending everything." "They have. 300 ships, maybe more." Frank felt his stomach drop. 12 human ships against 300 Vorthic vessels would be a slaughter, even with their new crystal weapons. "How long do we have?" 6 weeks, sir. Maybe 7 if they stop to gather more ships." Captain Amy Clark was training with Threnody pilots in their crystal fighters. The alien ships were beautiful, but fragile, designed for their peaceful culture. Rather than war. "You have to be more aggressive," Amy told the crystal being beside her. "In combat, hesitation kills." The Threnody pilot, whose name translated to Bright Echo, struggled with human battle tactics. "Your species fights with such violence. Is this really necessary?" "Unfortunately, yes. The Vorthic understand only strength. We have to be stronger." "Doctor." Park made a breakthrough while studying Threnody technology. He called the senior officers to his laboratory, where a crystal the size of a baseball floated in an energy field. "This is a resonance amplifier," Kevin explained. "If we can build a big enough version and get it close to Vorthic ships, it could disrupt their hull integrity at the molecular level." "You mean it would make their ships fall apart?" Jake asked. "Exactly. But we'd have to get within a few hundred meters to make it work. It would be a suicide mission." Commander Susan Hayes had been studying galactic politics and military history. She found Frank reviewing battle plans in his ready room. "Admiral, I think we're approaching this wrong," Susan said. We're trying to fight the Vorthic Empire like it's a military problem, but it's really a political one. Explain. The Vorthic rule through fear. They've convinced the galaxy that resistance is futile, but we've proven that's not true. If we can get other species to join us ... double quotes, Frank nodded slowly. You want to start a rebellion. More than that. I want to start a war. A real war with the entire galaxy choosing sides. The idea was dangerous, but appealing. Humanity couldn't defeat the Vorthic Empire alone, but they might not have to. If enough species joined together, even the mighty Vorthic could be overwhelmed. Lisa had been working on communications with other resistance movements across the galaxy. Her translation programs were finally breaking through decades of mistrust and fear. I've made contact with the hegemony of Kess, she reported. They've been fighting the Vorthic for 50 years. They're interested in an alliance. More contacts followed. The machine intelligence called the Unity, the warrior clans of the Drakmor system, the hive mind colonies of the Far Reach, all species that had refused to bow to Vorthic rule. But convincing them to work together would be harder than fighting the Vorthic themselves. Galactic politics were complicated by thousands of years of warfare, betrayal, and cultural differences. We need to prove ourselves, Frank decided. When the Vorthic fleet arrives, we need to not just survive, but win decisively. Show the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten. Jake looked at the star maps showing the approaching enemy fleet. 300 ships against their small human force and whatever allies they could gather. It should have been impossible, but humans had spent their entire history doing impossible things. They had survived ice ages that should have killed them. They had built civilizations that should have collapsed. They had reached the stars despite being from a world that tried to kill them every day. Now, they would do one more impossible thing. They would unite a galaxy against its greatest threat and prove that sometimes the smallest voice could shout loud enough to wake the universe. The Vorthic were coming with fire and fury, but they would find humanity waiting with allies, determination, and the unshakable belief that good people never surrender to evil, no matter how hopeless the odds appear. The Vorthic retaliation fleet arrived like a storm of metal and death. 300 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, their hulls glowing with weapon energy. High War Marshal Vexos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought called Deathbringer. Finally, Vexos growled. Time to teach these Deathworld primitives the price of defying the Empire. Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet approach from the bridge of the UES Liberty. The human ships were hidden behind the Threnody homeworld, using the planet's gravity to mask their presence. 12 human vessels and 30 Threnody crystal ships faced an armada that could burn worlds. Remember the plan, Admiral Frank Collins announced over the fleet communication system. We only get one chance at this. Make every shot count. The system had been transformed into a trap over the past 6 weeks. Human engineering combined with Threnody crystal technology had created something the galaxy had never seen before. Asteroids had been hollowed out and filled with explosives. Space mines drifted in seemingly random patterns. The planet's crystal cities had been converted into massive weapon platforms. Dr. Kevin Park's experimental resonance bomb sat in the cargo bay of the Liberty, ready for its final journey. The device was beautiful and terrifying, a crystal sphere, surrounded by human fusion technology. It would only work once, but once would be enough. Enemy fleet is entering the asteroid field, reported Lieutenant Roy Bennett. They're moving in standard formation. They have no idea what's waiting for them. The Vorthic fleet advanced confidently through space. They had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics. Overwhelming firepower applied without mercy until the enemy surrendered or died. They expected the human fleet to meet them in open battle and be destroyed quickly. Instead, the first thing that happened was that space exploded around them. Hidden mines detonated in sequence, creating a chain reaction of fire and destruction. Asteroids rigged with human explosives tore apart like massive grenades, sending chunks of rock and metal through the Vorthik formation. "Ambush!" shouted the Vorthik tactical officer. "The humans have mined the entire system." Dexos snarled as he watched several of his ships disappear in brilliant explosions. Cowards! They don't fight with honor. But this was only the beginning. As the Vorthik fleet tried to reform, the real attack began. Threnody crystal ships emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Their weapons had been enhanced with human technology, turning elegant energy beams into devastating cutting. Tools. Captain Amy Clark led the human fighter squadron in a coordinated strike against the Vorthik command ships. Her pilots flew with the fearless aggression of their Deathworld heritage, diving straight into enemy fire to deliver their nuclear payloads. "This is fighter leader to all units," Amy called out. "Remember, we're not trying to survive this. We're trying to win it." The Threnody had learned human tactics over the past weeks. Elder Zephyros personally led a group of crystal ships in ramming attacks against Vorthik cruisers. His people had been peaceful for thousands of years, but watching their world burn had awakened something fierce in their crystalline hearts. The battle became chaos. Where the Vorthik expected orderly warfare with rules and formations, they found desperate violence from species fighting for their very existence. Human ships used the gravity of planets to slingshot themselves into impossible attack positions. Threnody vessels scattered into clouds of crystal fragments, only to reform and attack from new directions. "Sir," the Vorthik communications officer reported to Dexos, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species are watching this battle." Dexos didn't care about alien observers. He was focused on the human flagship that was diving straight toward his dreadnought. The Liberty looked tiny compared to the Deathbringer, but it was moving fast and carrying something that made his sensors scream warnings. "Jake," Admiral Collins called from his own ship. "You're sure about this?" "As sure as I can be, Admiral. If Kevin's bomb works, it'll take out their entire command structure. If it doesn't work, well, at least we'll go out fighting." The Liberty raced through the battle, dodging plasma beams and missile volleys. The ship's armor was scarred and smoking, but Chief Engineer Tony Rivera kept the engines running through. Pure determination and creative engineering. "Crystal resonators are at full power," Tony reported. "Kevin's bomb is ready for deployment." The Vorthik point defense systems opened fire as the Liberty approached. Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids hammered against the human ship's hull. But the Liberty had been built to survive, and it kept coming. Jake stood on his bridge, watching the Vorthik dreadnought grow larger in the main screen. He thought about Earth, billions of light years away. He thought about the Threnody children, hiding in crystal caves. He thought about all the species across the galaxy who were watching this moment, wondering if the Vorthik Empire could finally be defeated. "Deploy the resonance bomb," Jake ordered. The crystal sphere shot out of the Liberty's cargo bay, propelled by human missile technology toward the heart of the Vorthik flagship. For a moment, it looked like just another weapon that would harmlessly bounce off the enemy's shields. Then it activated. The resonance effect spread outward from the bomb like ripples in a pond. But instead of water, it was disrupting the molecular bonds that held matter together. The Vorthik shields flickered and died. The massive hull of the Deathbringer began to crack and split apart. Dexos felt his ship shaking apart around him. Impossible. What kind of weapon is this? The answer came over the galaxy-wide communication channel that Dr. Lisa Martinez had opened. Captain Morrison's voice reached every world in known space, carried by alien communication networks that had been hijacked by human computer viruses. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human fleet," his voice echoed across the galaxy. "We came from a world called Earth to answer a cry for help. We don't know your languages or your customs, but we know right from wrong. The Vorthic Empire ends today." The resonance bonds effect spread to other Vorthic ships near the flagship. 12 massive vessels simply came apart, their crews dying instantly as their ships dissolved around them. The remaining Vorthic fleet panicked their formation. Breaking as commanders tried to escape the impossible weapon, but the humans weren't finished. Admiral Collins led the rest of the human fleet in a coordinated attack on the fleeing Vorthic ships. Every weapon humanity had ever dreamed of was unleashed in those moments. Nuclear missiles, railgun projectiles, crystal-enhanced energy beams, and pure human fury combined into a storm of destruction. Commander Susan Hayes coordinated the battle from her ship, the U's Storm. She had studied galactic warfare for weeks and knew exactly how to exploit Vorthic weaknesses. "All ships target their engine sections," Susan ordered. "Don't let any of them escape to report our full capabilities." The Threnody fought with newfound courage, inspired by human example. Their crystal ships moved like living things through space, dodging and weaving while their enhanced weapons cut through Vorthic armor like light through glass. Elder Zephyros personally destroyed 3 enemy ships. His ancient wisdom finally turned to warfare for our fallen cities. He called out in broken English, "For our human friends." Across the galaxy, other species watched in amazement. The hegemony of Kess saw Vorthic ships fleeing in terror. The machine intelligence called Unity calculated new possibilities for galactic freedom. The warrior clans of Drakmor roared approval for the human battle fury they recognized in their own hearts. On the Council world, Ambassador Viridian stared at the battle reports with wonder. "They're actually winning," he whispered. "A Deathworld species is defeating the Vorthic Empire." The tide of the battle turned completely when Tony Rivera managed to repair the Liberty's engines. The human flagship, scarred and smoking, but still fighting, led a final charge against the remaining Vorthic command ships. "This is for everyone you've killed," Jake shouted as the Liberty's weapons tore through a Vorthic cruiser. The enemy fleet began jumping to hyperspace, abandoning the battle, and they're dead. Of the 300 ships that had arrived to crush humanity, barely 50 escaped. The rest floated as debris in space, testimony to what happened when Deathworld species fought for something they believed in. High War Marshal Vexos died when his flagship finally broke apart completely, the resonance weapon turning the Deathbringer into a cloud of atomic particles. His last thought was disbelief that primitives from an unknown world had destroyed the greatest fleet in Vorthic history. As the battle ended, Jake stood on his damaged bridge and looked around at his surviving crew. They had done the impossible. 12 human ships and their Threnody allies had defeated an empire that had ruled for thousands of years. "Lisa, open a channel to the galaxy," Jake ordered. Dr. Martinez nodded, her fingers dancing over controls that connected them to every world in known space. This time, the humans had something different to say. "People of the galaxy," Jake began, "this is humanity speaking. We come from a dangerous world far from here. We learned about the Vorthic Empire when we heard the Threnody calling for help. Today we proved that empires built on fear and cruelty can be defeated by those willing to fight for what's right.